Unfortunately, most people just aren't able to break away from the indoctrination.
Nation is so soft, says the same people who were crying 50 years ago over having to share a water fountain with a black person.
So there's a video that's going viral, and it's titled, "Young White Kids Turn on Their Parents After Learning the Truth They Hid About Black People."
Nation is so soft, says the same people who were crying 50 years ago over having to share a water fountain with a black person.
Hilarious.
Why does this kid have a phone? Why is he making like great points? And why is he talking into his phone from that direction? And how did he upload it?
And how does he know about this?
Because he has a phone.
Bro, I thought we dug this good enough, dude.
You thought we buried this?
Yeah, I thought we buried this a while ago, bro. I thought we covered this up, man.
He looks so disgusted. His face is like, oh, yeah.
This kid's just learning about the cranberry juice box. How is this kid learning about this?
This comment says, bro woke up and out of all languages, he chose to speak facts.
Well, TikTok told us some young dude, maybe like a little bit older than Noga, between Noga and Jasmine. He was like, this generation weak. Y'all scared of everything. He said from a generation who 50 years ago was crying because they had to share a water fountain with a black person. Damn. He was a little white boy. Somebody was like, but he's not lying. No, he's like, we weak.
And not being wild. Yeah, not being wild. He been here already. That's how he know.
Nah, for real.
Yeah,
he felt that.
You know what irks me the most about that post I made the other day about that child who was like, 50 years ago, y'all were crying about sharing a fountain with black people, which was very valid. It may have not been 50 years ago, but I've never seen a platform where a bunch of adults are trying to dissect a child who's obviously 10 to 13 years old, maybe younger. You feel me?
I mean, it's just a fact though, isn't it? Let me move myself out of the way. Different water fountains, different bus seats, different buses in general. They were a bunch of pussies. Let's be honest.
And they're like, oh, well, 50 years ago, nobody was crying about a water fountain. Do the math. You guys are a bunch of adults dissecting a child, and this goes to show how uneducated and foolish some of you guys really are, because everybody understood exactly what that kid was saying. His whole point of where he was coming from was explaining the fact that years and years and years ago, racism was a thing. Years and years ago, people couldn't go to the same school together, but because that's not a thing anymore, it shows who still wants that to be a thing by the way you guys project and deflect. Obviously, a child's not going to have the timeline perfect because, again, this child's 8 to 13 years old. But for all of you saying, oh, it wasn't 50 years ago. No shit, Sherlock. Maybe an adult should be able to identify that. But the problem is you guys still can't. And the fact that the world is still not divided, it makes you guys so angry. And I feel like that is the problem. That's a deeper rooted issue. Your racism can't be public anymore. Sucks to suck, doesn't it?
When was 1965? That's like 60 years ago, no? Yeah, it's 60 years ago. 61. I mean, he wasn't that far off. People are crying over 10 years. My mom was born in 56. You know what I'm saying? When my mom came to the UK, there was still no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. Like, that's the time that she grew up in. Literally, she was conscious, a conscious human being. When all this... This is also why when people start talking about, oh, it was so long ago. It's like, long ago to who? The person that birthed me went through it. I'm infinitely, like... not as a human, but in terms of how I view all this shit, I'm infinitely better than my mum. I'm infinitely more liberal. I'm infinitely more liberal than my brother. Because they actually experienced, my mum actually experienced it firsthand. So the feelings that she has, the way that she views the world, it's darker. You know, especially when it comes to white people, it's just darker because she lived it and she couldn't understand why blacks and dogs were in the same conversation. It didn't make sense to her.
This video, and I'll be right back.
One of the arguments you hear in opposition to talking to young children or to teaching elementary level school children about racism or the history of racism in America, the argument goes something along the lines of, well, you're going to make white kids feel bad about being white. What is your response to that?
Well, I would say those people are most concerned about our teaching of slavery. So let's just talk about slavery.
Sure.
If we teach white kids about slavery, we're going to teach them that there were white people who enslaved people and there were black people who were enslaved. And we're also going to teach them that there were white people and black people who challenged and fought against slavery.
Exactly.
And so my question back to them would be, why can't we allow white children to identify with white abolitionists? And
exactly.
And also it demonstrates to me that these folks recognize that kids are not colorblind and that how we shape the curriculum impacts our children. So then why aren't they concerned about how black kids feel when they're not represented in the curriculum?
Perfect response. This is how you shut it down. Why do you assume these children would not identify with the abolitionists? Why do you assume that these children would identify more with the...
That's a genuine question, by the way. Why? Why? Is that how you guys view yourself historically? Is that the guilt that you guys feel? I don't know. It's a genuine question.
Racist slave owners. But what's always been crazy to me is that white children are so delicate that they can't learn about racism, but black children can continue to experience it from said children. So when the white child is being racist, you can't teach them that racism is wrong. But the black child that's being abused by said child being racist, they have to deal with it. Go home and cry. The parents have to talk to them. How does that make sense? White children that delicate? Anywho.
The history they want to erase, and this was in 1953. He was 7 years old. He was thirsty. He drank from the wrong fountain, and he spent 3 hours in jail. The amount of hatred these people have for us and still have for us have to be studied, because I don't understand this. I don't understand how this was the norm back in the day. This is absolutely disgusting. The more I dig into history, the more shocking it gets. Like, I mean, he's a boy. He's a little boy. He's thirsty. It's hot. He needed a cup of water. And he spent 3 hours in jail. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And by the way,
the people who experience this, by the way, would be 80 years old today. Still alive. Would be about 80. 53. He was 7 in 53. 53. If you're born in 53, you'd be 73. Add 7, 80. Yeah.
Did you also know that they were eating us? Yeah. They were killing us, eating us, cooking us.
Talk.
But like I said, they would never put that in the history books.
The reason why white people are still racist today is because of their experience with...
No, the fuck not. It is not because of the experience that they have with black people that some white people are racist. It is the fact that their parents taught them to be racist. And the fact that they have not done the due diligence to unlearn that racism.
Nobody's born racist. Nobody's born misogynist. Nobody's born sexist. Nobody's born misandrist. These are all things that are passed down by our parents. And a lot of these things are ideologies, just like a religion. It's very difficult to undo religious indoctrination. Very difficult. It's actually how most people get introduced into religion, via their parents. When our parents tell us something, generally speaking, we believe it and we take it in. And we take it as fact. If your parent is drilling racism into you, it's going to be very hard to unlearn that shit, man. And the best example that I use for myself is this. Every single opinion that I have is mine. I was never indoctrinated into nothing. Mom never told me about religion, neither did my dad. They never told me politics. Nobody indoctrinated me into any belief that I have, except for don't eat pork. My mom's a Rasta. We don't eat pork. Till this day, I don't eat pork. I see it, it disgusts me. I see people eating it. The smell makes me sick. I'm not allergic to it. It's just vile and disgusting to me. Why? Because my mom told me that's something we don't do. And that's the power of indoctrination. And I'll never eat pork, by the way. And my kids will eat pork, and that's just kind of, it just kind of is what it is.
And I am speaking that from experience. I grew up in a very racist household. My grandmother was racist, my mother was racist. And I learned and said a lot of racist things, all of which I deeply fucking regret. But the reason I did those things and the reason I thought that doing those things was okay was because that's what I learned from my parents. I was, in fact, one of those people who were screaming about, it's not hatred, it's heritage. I was one of those people who saw nothing wrong with still carrying around the Confederate flag. But guess what? After I got out into the real world and experienced the real world and got away from the people who were racist and who were feeding that mindset into my brain, I broke away from those mindsets. And after breaking away from that mindset and the people who were feeding that mindset into me and starting to experience and have conversations with real life black people other than, just a few interactions in high school, I started to unlearn all that bullshit that was brainwashed into my fucking brain. And just to put a scope as to how bad the brainwashing was, my mother, my birth giver, because she's no longer my mother, I don't associate with her, used to call people the N-word with the hard ER, not with an A, with the hard ER. And her justification for that was if they didn't want to be called that, they shouldn't act that way. And I thought that was okay. I now understand that that is a really fucked up thing to fucking say. But at the time, I thought it was okay because that was the person who raised me, the person who brainwashed me into thinking that way. So if you, as a white person, are still having these mindsets, it is your duty and responsibility to break away from these fucked up mindsets. It is not a black person's job to tiptoe around your fucking racism.
The fact that this entire conversation was sparked by one white kid's TikTok or Instagram post that he probably just thought about on a whim, absolutely sensational. And when you listen to the older generation speak, sometimes we gotta start bringing up the historical facts, because a lot of this shit don't be making sense. But what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments.
This liquor got me in my zone. Now I'm blowing up your phone. Blowing weed, smoking the ozone. I just can't let this go. This liquor got me in my zone.